The courtroom confrontation. Dr. Maya Wilson stood motionless as Judge Richard Harrington's gavel came down with unnecessary force. The sound echoed through courtroom 17 of the new Chicago Federal Building like a gunshot. She kept her expression neutral even as the judge's cold eyes settled on her with thinly veiled contempt. The court finds the defendant in violation of Traffic Ordinance 45B. You will pay a fine of 2,000 credits, Judge Harrington declared, his voice carrying the practiced authority of 30 years on the bench. His silver hair caught the artificial light as he leaned forward, adding, "And an additional 500 for wasting this court's time with your ridiculous excuses." Maya opened her mouth to object, but thought better of it. 36 years of navigating spaces not designed for people who looked like her had taught her when to pick her battles. This wasn't one of them. The fine was excessive. Everyone in the courtroom knew it, but Judge Harrington's reputation preceded him. The notorious Hammer of District 7 had never met a defendant he couldn't find a reason to penalize, especially if they happened to have skin darker than his own. "Yes, Your Honor," she said evenly, gathering her documents. She didn't miss the momentary flash of disappointment in his eyes. He'd wanted her to protest, to give him reason to increase the fine further. "Next case," he barked, already looking past her. Maya made her way through the ornate wooden doors of the courtroom, her spine straight despite the burning indignation building in her chest. The corridor outside was busy with the usual Monday morning chaos: harried lawyers, nervous defendants, and court officials hurrying between appointments. She stopped at the payment terminal and pressed her thumb against the reader, authorizing the transfer of 2,500 credits from her account. "Ridiculous," she muttered as the machine chirped its confirmation. "He really did a number on you, didn't he?" Maya turned to find a young clerk watching her, sympathy evident in his expression. "I've seen Judge Harrington at work before," he continued, lowering his voice. "But that was especially harsh, even for him." "Nothing I haven't seen before," Maya replied, tucking her payment receipt into her bag. "Though I'm curious what would justify a 2,500 credit fine for being 3 minutes late to move my hover car from a loading zone." The clerk shrugged. "Word around the courthouse is that he's extra tense this week. The Quantum Nexus case starts tomorrow, and his entire career is riding on it." Maya's eyebrows rose slightly. "The Quantum Nexus case, the corporate espionage trial. That's the one. Biggest tech trial of the decade. If he handles it well, he's practically guaranteed that Supreme Court nomination he's been chasing." Maya checked her wrist display. "Interesting timing. I should get going." She navigated through the grand courthouse lobby, nodding politely to the security officers as she passed. Outside, New Chicago sprawled before her, a gleaming metropolis of spires and elevated transport tubes that had risen from the ashes of old Chicago after the climate wars. Her hover car waited where she had left it, now legally parked in the visitors section. As she settled into the driver's seat, her comm link pinged with an incoming message. "Dr. Wilson," came the voice of her assistant. "Director Patel called. She needs you at the Institute immediately. Something about final preparation for tomorrow's testimony." "Tell her I'm on my way," Maya replied, directing her vehicle into the stream of morning traffic. The Wilson Institute for Quantum Applications stood on the city's western edge, a striking complex of interconnected circular buildings whose glass surfaces shimmered with embedded solar collection technology that Maya herself had helped design. As founder and lead researcher, she had transformed theoretical quantum mechanics into practical applications that were revolutionizing everything from medicine to space travel. Dr. Ariana Patel was waiting in Maya's office, surrounded by holographic displays of molecular structures rotating slowly in the air. "There you are. I was getting worried," Ariana said, dismissing one of the holograms with a flick of her wrist. "How was traffic court?" Maya set down her bag with more force than necessary. "Expensive." Judge had a chip on his shoulder. Ariana winced. "Harrington." "The very same. How did you know?" "His reputation precedes him. I had to appear before him last year for a property dispute. He called me little lady, and suggested I might need my husband to explain the proceedings to me. Ariana's expression darkened at the memory. I have 3 feds. Well, today he decided that being 3 minutes late moving my car was worth 2,500 credits. Maya said, sinking into her chair. But enough about closed-minded judges. What's so urgent? Ariana's expression turned serious as she activated a new hologram. This one showing complex quantum entanglement patterns. The prosecution's office called. They've moved up your expert testimony. You're on first thing tomorrow morning. That's earlier than expected. Maya frowned, studying the patterns. Any particular reason? They didn't say, but rumor has it they're worried about jury comprehension. They want your explanation of quantum encryption methods front and center before Ultratech's lawyers can muddy the waters. Maya nodded slowly. The case against Ultratech Corporation was complex. Allegations that they had stolen quantum encryption algorithms from their chief competitor, Quantum Sphere, potentially worth trillions in the global security market. Have you reviewed my presentation slides? Maya asked, pulling up her own workstation. Yes, but I think we need to simplify further. Remember, you're explaining quantum superposition to people who may not have taken a science class since high school, Ariana replied, sending a revised file to Maya's display. They worked through the afternoon, refining Maya's testimony and anticipating cross-examination questions. By evening, Maya felt prepared but exhausted. She dismissed Ariana with thanks and was preparing to leave herself when her comlink chimed with an unexpected message. Dr. Wilson, this is Court Administrator Jimenez from the Federal Courthouse. Please contact me immediately regarding tomorrow's proceedings. Maya frowned but returned the call. This is Dr. Wilson. The administrator's holographic image appeared on her desk, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Doctor, thank you for responding so quickly. There's been a situation regarding your appearance tomorrow. Judge Harrington has just been assigned to preside over the Ultratech case. Maya froze. Judge Harrington. Richard Harrington. Yes. Judge Kwan had a medical emergency, and Judge Harrington was next in the rotation. I understand you appeared in his courtroom today. I did, Maya confirmed, her mind racing. For a traffic violation. Yes, well, the administrator cleared his throat. The judge has just been informed that you are the prosecution's key expert witness, and he's concerned about potential conflict of interest given your earlier appearance today. Maya leaned back in her chair, a grimly amused smile spreading across her face. I imagine he is. He's requested a private conference with counsel from both sides and yourself, first thing tomorrow, before proceedings begin officially. I'll be there, Maya said, already considering the implications. After ending the call, she sat in the quiet of her office, watching the city lights come on as dusk fell. She thought about the judge's dismissive attitude, his condescension, the excessive fine. Thought about 36 years of similar interactions. Thought about the careers of people like her that had been derailed by people like him. Then she thought about tomorrow, about equations and algorithms so complex they were beyond the comprehension of most humans, about technologies that could reshape global security, about a judge whose career ambitions hinged on managing a case he couldn't possibly understand without her help. Maya Wilson smiled to herself as she packed her materials for tomorrow's testimony. Justice, it seemed, sometimes worked in mysterious ways. The next morning, Maya arrived at the courthouse an hour early, dressed in a tailored navy suit, her natural hair styled in a professional updo. She was directed to Conference Room B, where Judge Harrington sat at the head of a long table, flanked by the prosecution and defense teams. The moment she entered, she saw recognition flash in the judge's eyes, followed by what might have been alarm. His complexion seemed to pale slightly beneath his perfectly maintained tan. Dr. Wilson, he said, rising halfway from his seat in a belated show of respect. Thank you for joining us this morning. Your Honor, she replied with a polite nod, taking the empty seat directly across from him. For the next 30 minutes, the attorneys discussed procedural matters while the judge kept stealing glances at Maya. When the lawyers had concluded their business, Judge Harrington cleared his throat. Dr. Wilson, I believe we should address the elephant in the room. You appeared in my courtroom yesterday for an unrelated matter. A traffic violation. Yes, Your Honor, Maya replied calmly. Given that prior interaction, I feel it necessary to confirm that you can provide unbiased expert testimony in today's proceedings. Maya met his gaze directly. Your Honor, my testimony will be based solely on scientific fact and my expert analysis of the quantum encryption methods in question. My personal experiences have no bearing on the mathematics of quantum superposition. The judge's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course, I simply wanted to ensure that the court's integrity is maintained. Maya finished for him. I understand completely. Rest assured, Judge Harrington, I take my role as an expert witness very seriously. Something in her tone made him pause. For a moment, genuine uncertainty crossed his usually impassive features. He must have suddenly remembered the excessive fine he'd imposed just yesterday. Must have realized that the expert witness upon whose testimony his career-defining case depended was the same black woman he'd dismissed and penalized with such casual disregard. Then, he said with forced confidence, we shall proceed as scheduled. As the meeting adjourned and people filed out, Judge Harrington caught Maya's arm gently. Dr. Wilson, he said quietly, regarding yesterday's unfortunate incident. Maya raised an eyebrow. Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked as if he were struggling with something profound. Perhaps the fine was excessive. I could review the decision. That won't be necessary, Your Honor, Maya replied, her voice level. I believe in respecting the court's judgments, even when they seem disproportionate. After all, consistency in applying the law is crucial to maintaining public trust. Wouldn't you agree? Judge Harrington swallowed hard, nodding stiffly. See you in court, Dr. Wilson. As Maya walked away, she felt his eyes on her back. In a few minutes, she would take the stand. She would explain concepts so complex that few humans on Earth fully understood them, and Richard Harrington's prestigious career would rest in her expert hands. The expert's verdict. Courtroom 3 of the federal building had been specially modified for the Ultratech trial. Holographic displays were positioned for both the jury and the gallery, and the witness stand had been equipped with quantum simulation technology to help illustrate the complex concepts at the heart of the case. Dr. Maya Wilson took the oath, her voice clear and steady as she promised to tell the truth. Judge Harrington watched her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher, something between concern and calculation. Please state your name and qualifications for the record, the prosecutor, Andrea Chen, requested. Dr. Maya Wilson. I hold PhDs in quantum physics and applied mathematics from MIT and a doctorate of engineering from Caltech. I'm the founder and director of the Wilson Institute for Quantum Applications, and I hold 73 patents related to quantum technology. I've published 142 peer-reviewed papers on quantum encryption and its applications, and I serve as a technical advisor to the Global Security Council. The courtroom was silent as her credentials echoed through the space. Maya noticed several jurors sitting up straighter, clearly impressed. Judge Harrington's expression remained carefully neutral, though she detected a flicker of something like surprise in his eyes. Dr. Wilson, Chen continued, could you explain in layman's terms what quantum encryption is and why it matters? Maya activated the holographic display, which showed a simplified representation of traditional versus quantum encryption. Quantum encryption uses the fundamental properties of quantum mechanics, specifically superposition and entanglement, to create essentially unbreakable codes. Unlike traditional encryption, which relies on mathematical complexity, quantum encryption is secured by the laws of physics themselves. For the next hour, Maya walked the jury through the fundamentals of quantum encryption, careful to use accessible metaphors and clear examples. She could see comprehension dawning on their faces as she demonstrated concepts that most quantum physicists spent years mastering. And why is this technology so valuable? Chen asked. Whoever controls quantum encryption will control the future of global security, Maya explained. Banking, military communications, personal data, all would be absolutely secure. It represents a paradigm shift worth potentially trillions of credits. When Chen finished her direct examination, Ultratech's lead attorney, James Donovan, rose for cross-examination. His reputation as a ruthless litigator preceded him. Dr. Wilson, your explanation was certainly impressive, he began, emphasizing the word as if it were somehow suspect. But isn't it true that much of quantum theory remains theoretical? Quantum theory is one of the most thoroughly tested scientific frameworks in human history, Maya replied calmly. The technologies in question aren't theoretical. They're already functional in laboratory settings. Donovan paced before the jury. And yet you can't guarantee that these encryption methods are truly unbreakable, can you? Maya smiled slightly. Mr. Donovan, in science we don't deal in absolute guarantees. We deal in evidence. The evidence suggests that quantum encryption, properly implemented, is secure against any known or foreseeable computational attack. Unless someone manages to rewrite the laws of physics, of course. A ripple of appreciative laughter moved through the courtroom. Judge Harrington lightly tapped his gavel, but Maya noticed the corner of his mouth twitch upward. Donovan's questioning grew increasingly technical, clearly hoping to confuse either Maya or the jury. At one point, he presented a complex mathematical formula on the display. Dr. Wilson, would you agree that this representation of Bell's inequality undermines the security claims of QuantumSphere's encryption protocol? Maya studied the equation for only a moment before responding. I would not agree, because what you've displayed is not actually Bell's inequality. The third term has been subtly altered. The actual equation would support QuantumSphere's claims. Murmurs spread through the courtroom as Donovan fumbled with his notes. Judge Harrington leaned forward, studying both the equation and Maya with new interest. Furthermore, Maya continued, I'm curious how Ultratech's legal team came to possess this particular misrepresentation of the equation. It matches exactly an error that appeared in my research team's preliminary drafts. Drafts that were never published, but were stored on QuantumSphere's supposedly secure servers. The courtroom fell silent. Donovan stood frozen, realizing too late the trap he'd walked into. Judge Harrington's gavel came down sharply. Mr. Donovan approached the bench. You too, Ms. Chen. As the attorneys conferred with the judge in hushed, urgent tones, Maya remained composed in the witness stand. She had suspected something like this might happen. The stolen algorithms weren't just valuable to Ultratech because they worked. They were valuable because they contained her specific insights, approaches that nobody else in the field had yet conceived. After several tense minutes, Judge Harrington addressed the courtroom. In light of new evidence that has emerged during testimony, this court will take a 1-hour recess. The jury is instructed not to discuss the case. In the judge's chambers, Maya found herself seated across from Judge Harrington, with both legal teams present. The judge's demeanor had completely transformed from the previous day. Gone was the condescension, replaced by focused intensity. Dr. Wilson, he began, your observation about the equation is potentially case-altering. Are you absolutely certain about this? I am, Your Honor. That particular error was unique to our first draft formulations. It's like a fingerprint. There's no way Ultratech could have independently arrived at exactly the same mathematical error. Judge Harrington turned to Donovan. Counselor, you have exactly one chance to explain how your client came to possess this equation. Donovan's composure cracked. Your Honor, I was given these materials by my client. I had no knowledge of. Save it, the judge interrupted. I'm ordering an immediate forensic examination of all materials submitted by the defense. He turned to his clerk. Contact the FBI's cyber division. I want their quantum computing specialist here within the hour. As the room erupted into activity, Judge Harrington gestured for Maya to remain seated as the others filed out. When they were alone, he looked at her with what appeared to be genuine remorse. Dr. Wilson, about yesterday. Maya raised a hand. Your Honor, with respect, that's not relevant to these proceedings. It is to me, he insisted, surprising her with his earnestness. I've been on the bench for 30 years. I'd like to think I've always been fair, but your testimony today, you see things others miss. It makes me wonder what else I've missed. Maya considered him carefully. Judge Harrington, may I speak frankly? He nodded. For people like me, excellence isn't just an aspiration, it's a requirement. I have to be exceptional just to be taken seriously. Yesterday, you didn't see me. You saw a black woman who was late moving her car, and you decided that was all you needed to know. She held his gaze steadily. How many others have you judged the same way? The question hung in the air between them. For perhaps the first time in his judicial career, Richard Harrington seemed at a loss for words. I don't expect an answer right now, Maya said, rising from her chair. But perhaps it's something to consider during your deliberations, not just in this case, but in all of them. The remainder of the trial unfolded with dramatic speed. The FBI's investigation revealed that Ultratech had indeed stolen Quantum Sphere's encryption algorithms through an elaborate cyber attack. Moreover, they had attempted to frame a junior researcher for the theft, a young black woman who had recently been terminated from the company. When the jury returned their verdict against Ultratech, Judge Harrington's sentencing was unprecedented in its severity. Beyond the billions in damages awarded to Quantum Sphere, he ordered a complete restructuring of Ultratech's board and executive leadership and referred several executives for criminal prosecution. The sanctity of intellectual property is foundational to our innovation economy, he declared, but equally important is the integrity of our justice system. This court will not tolerate attempts to corrupt either. 1 month later, Maya received an official notice from the court. The 2,500 credit fine from her traffic violation had been vacated upon review. Attached was a personal note from Judge Harrington. Dr. Wilson, justice requires us to acknowledge when we've erred. I'm reviewing all my cases from the past 5 years. Some patterns have emerged that disturb me deeply. The Supreme Court nomination is no longer my priority. Getting it right is. Thank you for your expert testimony, in more ways than one. Hooray. Maya smiled as she filed the note away. Change happened slowly, especially in institutions as old as the justice system. But sometimes, all it took was one moment, one confrontation between presumption and excellence, to begin shifting the scales toward balance. In her lab at the Wilson Institute, she returned to her work. The quantum future was waiting to be built, and she had equations to solve.